I had the opportunity to participate in an event this week at the Charles H. Wright Museum called The Future of Information. It was put on by the Knight Foundation and the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. It was a pretty fascinating presentation with futurist Amy Webb about the impact of emerging tech and how that's impacting how we communicate with each other in the age of social media and beyond. It's pretty timely when you see Facebook getting grilled by Congress on privacy issues, and it might kind of just, it's going to get worse. Amy, I'm going to start off because I'm still in the cycle of doom a little bit. I'm coming out because when you talk about solving a lot of these problems, and the fact that government is only looking a couple of years, they're looking short term. Then we have shiny object syndrome there. We can't go long term, and part of that depends on the communication. And it feels like social media has changed the way we communicate. Maybe we're linked to more people, but we're able to kind of put ourselves in silos into what we want to hear. So how do we expand our worldview to be able to have those complicated conversations for a region like Southeast Michigan?
Well, I mean, I guess part of it is just like engaging your critical mind. Like, we're really good at the lizard brain, not so great at the cognitive, like the higher order cognitive thinking. So if you just stop for a moment and deconstruct the tweet, right? So I have 48,000 followers. Okay. An overwhelming majority of them are bots. So if I craft an argument, send out a tweet, right? How does the math work out in my favor to have a constructive conversation in any meaningful way? Right? It doesn't. So I guess if all of us just sort of stopped for 5 seconds, you can still have your arguments in public, right? You can still have these conversations if that's what you desire in public to get that kind of feedback, or, pick up a phone, right, and have a conversation.
Well, now hang on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean that's the thing, and so you can't create policy on Facebook or Twitter, right? You can't accomplish diplomacy through tweets, and if a community like this one is interested in really thinking critically about the future, then part of it is you've got to get people together in ways that make a lot of sense, right? So maybe it's meeting different times of the day for different purposes in different locations, and using video or whatever, but it's still people who matter.
I think she had a fascinating discussion, and we'll have it online for you at MiWeek.org if you want to check it out. But what struck me is I was watching the congressional hearings and Zuckerberg sitting in front of them, insert your own joke there. The optics were just really interesting to see. But really what struck me is when we're talking about the future of technology and how it's changing the way that we're communicating and the way we're getting information, that maybe government really doesn't have a whole handle on where things are going. Not only just
maybe that's good.
Well, no, I don't think it is good, because the ignorance of it and how things are, and how we're using that kind of artificial intelligence in everyday life already, and how it is being used, whether it's in defense or whether it's used in customer service and everything, that we maybe don't have the scope of what's going to be happening. What kind of regulations do we need? And then we're looking to entities like Facebook and saying Facebook is helping write the regulations. And I'm not really quite sure that that's a great idea either.
And remember, I mean, this is a information platform. This is an ideas and information platform. And as such, it should fall fully under the First Amendment. And I think what you heard over the last few days in Congress, this rush to regulate an information platform, I would be a little wary of that. I mean, we're all a little gun shy, I think, about the personal data sharing or selling that Facebook did, and there are perhaps things that need to be addressed there. But when you start talking about getting government fully involved in these social media platforms, I think you run up against the First Amendment.
So I mean, the key moment I thought over the last 2 days was when, and I don't remember which senator asked this question, asked Mark Zuckerberg, what is Facebook, right? He said, define this thing that you have created. And I thought Zuckerberg had a really interesting answer. He said, it is a lot of different things, and every day at Facebook they're trying to sort of figure out what it has become. I mean, for for users, it is a way to share information and ideas, but for advertisers, it's a product, right? It's a product that they're buying. For companies, they're buying Facebook. They're buying the data that Facebook
they're buying
collects,
what you're interested in,
and
where you're going to go next,
they're
and what your friends are interested in as well.
access to you and your data. That is a really different kind of product than the social media sort of exchange of ideas platform.
Different. In some ways, it's the same. In other ways, I mean, newspapers sold their readers' eyeballs to advertisers for a long time.
Right.
We could still do it today. I just would be careful in how much meddling
there are
the
rules
government
about
did.
that. Right?
I think Facebook would benefit, and all these social sites would benefit from more aggressive competition and a more competitive environment. Right
good luck
now,
with that.
I was
it's
gonna
just
say.
Facebook.
Well,
and
but
so
that's
Facebook.
But whose fault is that? I mean, it's not like you can create another platform to compete with something that already has 2 billion users. I mean, that's not.
I still think if you had other choices, you would have other options as a consumer.
But how do you create a
hey,
marketplace
I don't like
for that?
what you're doing.
But how do you create the marketplace
I think
for that?
Facebook may be creating the marketplace itself by abusing its customers.
So, but here's
Well,
the other thing.
hang on. But so then you look at, but they also own Instagram. So for the people who are saying, well, I'm not on Facebook, I'm just on Instagram.
Good luck,
they
right?
own that as well.
And the government has addressed monopolies before. I mean, even in our business, even within the First Amendment, they've addressed monopolies.
It falls under that monopoly thing, and the way that it might fall under the monopolistic issue is with how much of retail now, if you put Facebook, Google, and Amazon together, they comprise something like 65–70% of all retailing now in the country. That's more than almost any other industry has seen in terms of monopolization. There's real questions, I think, about whether they have to be broken up for that reason. But the other part of Facebook that should be regulated is this manipulation. You can't. People are buying data from Facebook, for instance, and then advertising jobs just to people of certain ethnic categories. Now, you're not allowed to do that, but if you buy the data and use Facebook to do it, there is no regulation to stop you.
Well,
I mean, there are a lot of
EEOC cover that
There are a
too?
lot of different iterations of what Facebook does that deserve at least some congressional inquiry as to whether.
Oh, and I think that's what we saw this week.
Maybe that goes back to a larger conversation of, does there need to be some kind of entity within the government that is looking out for where this next step of technology, so we're not like, Silicon Valley's doing a great job and they're creating things over here, and there's 3 companies in China who are creating things over here, but we have no handle on a governmental basis about where things are headed and how it's going to impact the way we are.
You don't want to stifle innovation.
No,
and
I'm not saying that.
You certainly don't want to stifle the free expression
But I'm
of
saying
ideas.
understanding instead of just saying, well, they're doing it out there and we're going to see what happens next.
You know, I think one of the more disturbing things of that testimony is how little Mark Zuckerman pretended to know about his own business, and question after question.
Hey, it was just a platform to rate pretty girls back at Harvard, right?
I mean, at one point he said, well,
Started with
this
the algorithm in his dorm room.
This grew up in our dorm room. We couldn't, and pretending it's not a billion-dollar company now.
Well, we'll make sure to put this conversation on Facebook.
Unless they block us.
Unless they block Nolan.